When the Roman Empire collapsed, a power vacuum opened across Europe. A Germanic people known as the Franks rushed in to fill it. Under their first great king, Clovis, they conquered their rivals and built a vast empire stretching across modern-day France and Germany. The successors of Clovis, the Merovingian Dynasty, held a unique claim to power. Their authority didn't rely on an election or the approval of a senate. It was locked inside their veins. They believed they possessed an exclusive sacred bloodline that gave them the absolute right to rule, a status they proudly stamped into the gold currency of the realm. 6th century Germanic legal custom reinforced this belief. A Merovingian king could not legally be deposed. Whether a brilliant tactician, an incompetent fool, or a 4-month-old infant, the crown remained firmly on his head. Between the written law and the religious taboo of the era, the Merovingian grip on Europe was effectively permanent. 2.5 centuries later, in the year 751, the last Merovingian king, Childeric III, was quietly escorted off the throne, given a monk's haircut, and shoved into a monastery for the rest of his life. The man who took his place was Pepin the Short, a noble from a rival family called the Carolingians. Pepin had absolutely zero royal blood whatsoever. Overthrowing a dynasty with this level of legal protection usually meant a grueling decade of total war and destruction. But Pepin didn't need a single battlefield to take the crown. The Carolingians bypassed the battlefield entirely. Over several generations, they slowly swallowed the kingdom through middle management and administrative bureaucracy. The erosion of royal power started with paperwork. In the year 614, King Clothar II issued a set of administrative rules known as the Edict of Paris. Modern historians sometimes romanticize this edict as a noble rebellion against the crown, similar to the Magna Carta. The reality was a boring, practical fix to a local governing problem. Clothar simply announced that local judges would now be appointed from their own local communities, rather than being shipped in from the royal court. He delegated judicial administration to local lords to improve community accountability and keep the peace. This map of Merovingian France illustrates why delegation was necessary. The massive realm was routinely divided among surviving sons, fracturing into sub-kingdoms, notably Neustria, Austrasia, and Burgundy, each requiring complex management. To handle the crushing daily operations of these fractured realms, the kings created a new office, the Mayor of the Palace. This was a chief household official hired to act as a prime minister, managing the estates, the taxes, and the localized headaches. By trying to make their own lives easier, the Merovingian kings accidentally handed the day-to-day levers of state power straight to an ambitious, highly competent administrative class. A century later, a mayor of the palace named Charles Martel, better known as Charles the Hammer, was the one actually running the country while the Merovingian king simply sat on a chair. Martel secured his ultimate leverage through military dominance. When the expanding Islamic Caliphate pushed into Europe, it was Martel who successfully commanded the Frankish forces to halt their advance at the Battle of Tours in 732. Wars are expensive, so Martel executed a brilliant financial maneuver. He seized vast tracts of wealthy church lands and used the revenue to pay his soldiers. Suddenly, the Frankish army wasn't loyal to the crown. They were loyal to the guy signing their paychecks. By 737, Martel's administrative control was absolute. When the sitting Merovingian king died that year, Martel didn't even bother installing a replacement. He simply left the throne empty and kept doing his job. By the time Martel died, the state had been entirely devoured from the inside. The bureaucracy had become the government. Martel's son, Pepin the Short, inherited this total state control, but Pepin wanted the official title of king, and the ancient Frankish law still dictated that only the Merovingian bloodline could hold it. Pepin needed a loophole. He sent a strategic letter to Pope Zachary in Rome, posing a philosophical question. Should the title of king belong to the man holding the name, or the man actually wielding the power? The Pope in Rome, needing a strong military ally, agreed that the man with the power should wear the crown. Papal representatives traveled north, and in a sweeping public ceremony, anointed Pepin with holy oil. Pepin successfully swapped the ancient metric of legitimacy. He replaced the absolute right of blood with the divine blessing of the church, finalizing the legal theft of a kingdom. A coup isn't complete until the history books agree with it. Pepin and his son, Charlemagne, launched a massive public relations campaign to justify their takeover to future generations. They invented a slanderous label for the later Merovingians, the rois fainéants, or the do-nothing kings, painting them as lazy, incompetent figureheads who spent their days riding around in ox carts. But modern historical evidence unravels that propaganda. Charters and documents reveal that later Merovingians, like King Dagobert I, were highly effective rulers, deeply involved in law and administration. Ultimately, the Carolingian narrative was entirely manufactured. The fall of the Merovingians proves a quiet reality of statecraft. True historical power rarely belongs to the person born wearing the crown. It belongs to the person who controls the bureaucracy, signs the military payroll, and writes the final history.